Hey guys, in this episode of the Nostalgia Trip, instead of doing a reaction, I'm actually going to be doing something a little bit special because at the end of the day, it is New Year's, and since I've been doing special K-pop videos for the end of the year, for the last like 3 years that I've been doing this YouTube channel, I decided that this year I should do something special for my cartoon reaction fans as well, aka the fans of the Nostalgia Trip. And for this year, since the first show that I started reacting to on my channel was Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the 2003 series, that's gonna be the series that is gonna get a top list, in which I'm gonna be sharing the top 23 episodes of the 2003 series. And I'm also really curious to hear what are your guys' top episodes from the 2003 series, because mine are gonna be, let's say, not as far-reaching as I feel like other people's are, but anyway, you're gonna see which episodes that I really like of this show. And yeah, I'm really excited to get into this video and explain to you guys why I love the 2003 series and the episodes that I love about it. And I even plan to maybe do another top list like this one, but instead of talking about the episodes or even characters, which is something that we can do as well, I want to talk about in general the top things that I like about this show, some of which I'm going to mention actually in the video. I'm going to be talking about the things that I like about this episode, so some of these things are going to come up naturally, but I'm not going to tell you which of these things is like my favorite thing about this show. But yeah, so we're going to start off with Season 4, Episode 19, Insane in the Membrane.
Looks infected.
Mama? Must be some neuroanesthetic residue from the transference. No! No! What's happening to me?
So this episode, for me personally, it doesn't really have as much of an impact as it seems to have for most people, because everybody regards it as like a gruesome and dark episode, and it is. And I really like the imagery that they give us with Stockman's decomposing body and everything. But for me, there's just kind of a lack of charm for it. I don't know if it's because I didn't watch this episode when I was a kid, so there's no nostalgia factor to it, as there is for a lot of the episodes on this list otherwise. But there's just something about this episode that for me isn't quite there, but because it's such an impactful episode for everybody, and because I recognize how impactful it is and how entertaining it is and dark it is, which is something that I really like about this show, how dark it gets, and this is a big example of that. I just feel like this episode for me didn't really have much of a substance, you know? I like the story that was trying to tell about Stockman and where it all went wrong with him and everything, but it just really didn't do it for me. I didn't really manage to resonate with it, so in a way, the episode for me feels a little bit like it's gory and dark for the sake of being gory and dark, like it's just for shock value and not really for any kind of substance, which I feel like otherwise this show nails that stuff. Maybe this episode went a little bit too far, or just didn't really have much of a substance for it, but I still think it's a really good episode, and it's a really dark episode. And it's just the fact that it's such an infamous episode to the point where this episode actually wasn't aired on TV, if I remember correctly. I just feel like this episode deserves to be on the list. Not necessarily that I personally like it, but I feel like it just deserves the spot. At number 22, we're gonna have an episode that I feel like a lot of people will agree is definitely deserving to be on this list, but some might say that it should be higher than this. But anyway, at number 22 we have Season 4, Episode 24 and 25, The Good Genes two-parter.
Perhaps we can be of aid to one another. What if I told you I could cure your brother?
Why would you help us?
I would help your brother because I require something from you in exchange.
There is no way we should make a deal with this guy.
Don's in trouble because of Bishop. And he tried to dissect us, remember?
It may be a deal with the devil, but what choice do we have?
So this episode is pretty interesting, obviously, because of the plot that is happening, where a few episodes earlier, Donnie ended up getting infected by aliens, by mutants who were mutated by ooze from fake aliens. It's a long story. If you haven't seen the show, it's a little bit hard to explain, but it's a bit of an ongoing plot, which is another really cool thing about this show, the ongoing plot and how there's a lot of continuity between episodes. So he gets infected and mutates even further, becoming an unhinged monster that cannot think for itself. And this plot is actually really cool because it happens specifically to Donatello. It could have been interesting if it happened to any of the other brothers as well, but the fact that it is Donatello, it means that it's not going to be easily solvable, especially with the track record of this show being very grounded and serious and not pulling solutions out of its ass. So the only way that they can cure him is by joining with Bishop and doing something for Bishop in exchange for him and Stockman helping Donatello. And it's just really tense, again, because Donatello is the one that got mutated. So you don't know whether they'll manage to cure him or not. Obviously, it's a cartoon, so they ended up curing him, but it's just the uncertainty. There's a little bit more of an uncertainty with him being the one that it happens to. So yeah, there's not much to say about this episode. I guess I should also bring up the kind of subplot of it where the mystics, the foot mystics who work for Karai or are her slaves, kind of hatch a plan of their own where they trick Bishop into sending the turtles to steal the heart of Tengu, which releases them, and as we know in season 5 they end up releasing the true Shredder. And it's a cool side plot and all, I'm fine with that, but the one thing that bothers me about it is that I personally don't really like season 5 that much. I know that might be a little bit of a controversial opinion, but I just don't really like it that much. And the designs of the Foot Mystics, I feel like the original ones where they're just like these, I don't know what to describe them, they're just like very short people, just looks more interesting. And again, it might be just nostalgia speaking, but I just prefer that look of the Mystics over the one that they get when they get released, and even in season 5 it just kind of loses it for me. It just doesn't work. And again, it just might be the nostalgia factor, but it just loses me in that regard. And I feel like as fine of a subplot that it is, as a way to kind of make the Turtles and Bishop work together, it just feels like, what was the point for Bishop to be the one involved? Like, and also, Bishop himself, as far as I think, he wouldn't be able to steal the heart of Tengu, so he would have had to work with the Turtles to get it. But there's no way the Mystics would have known that the Turtles would go to him for help, because they weren't the ones who infected Donatello. So it just feels kind of disjointed from the rest of the plot. It just feels like it's there to set up season 5, and it just kind of begrudgingly managed to fit with what was the ongoing plot. Yeah, I don't know, it just bothers me because obviously the Heart of Tengu gets destroyed, so Bishop kind of got it for nothing. And in a way, it's satisfying for him to get his comeuppance in that regard, but also considering that this is, I mean, I guess it's not the last time we see of him, but because he is in a little bit of season 5, but yeah, I don't know, it just bothers me because it just doesn't gel together as well as it should. But overall, it's a good episode. It's a pretty tense two-parter because of what I already explained, and I really like it. I do. So for number 21, we're gonna jump a little bit further to season 6 and episode 13, The Journal.
Whoa, guys! It's the journal!
Journal? Casey and April's journal?
As in the journal we're never ever supposed to read?
Because it contains entries about our entire lives, even the parts we haven't lived yet? Stuff that happens to us after we get back from 2105.
Me first!
That would be most unwise, my sons.
Yeah, Donnie, for shame!
Reading the contents of that book would mean certain doom. My sons, I know you are curious, but having knowledge of the future will only lead to catastrophe. Must you do that?
Apologies.
This episode is actually the one episode of season 6 that I remembered from when I watched the show originally. Because like when I was a kid, around like 2010 or something along those lines, the show was airing on TV, and I even caught like the tail end of season 4, and that's when I watched Good Genes for the first time. And that was also when I watched season 6, and at the time I thought that was season 5, not season 6, because I didn't know about the lost season. And the one episode of season 5 that I remembered, season 6, that I remembered was this one. Because not only it's like one of the cooler episodes of the season, it also has this really cool sci-fi concept, or should I say more specifically time travel concept. And if you didn't know, I'm a huge time travel fan. I love the concept of time travel, and I love almost any time travel story when it's specifically about time travel. It's just a concept that I really like. And the way they do it in this episode, I would have liked a little bit more of a serious take on it. Because out of the stories that the turtle read about themselves for back when they go back to the past, back to the 21st century, the early 21st century, only Leo's is kind of serious and engaging, and the other ones feel like comedic relief. And yeah, I still kind of enjoy Donatello's and Raph's story, but Leonardo is by far the one that is the most interesting, and Mikey is just a dumb one. And that doesn't ruin the episode for me, because again, I still like the concept of them finding out a journal that is that tells the stories of what happens once they go back to the present. It's just a cool concept just to think about and try to visualize how they're now in like 2105 and they go back to the past. But if they read this book, they can see what they're gonna live through. It's just really cool to think about, and that is the biggest reason why I enjoy this episode. And the fact that it turns out to be fake as a way to teach them a lesson, again, it's kind of satisfying and funny. I feel like it still works like a funny concept. I feel like just the stories could have been a little bit more serious. Because again, Leo's story is really cool with him thinking that Karai is gonna betray the Ninja Tribunal, which is really funny that they bring that up in this episode when if you haven't watched the Lost season, you would have no idea who the fuck the Ninja Tribunal is. So that is interesting because as you might know, the Lost season, aka season 5, was never aired on TV, I think properly or whatever. So when it originally aired from season 4 to season 6, you wouldn't know who these guys are. But it's just a really cool concept with him, with Donatello turning out to be Serling. Again, it's a really shocking reveal, so I still kind of like it. With Raph and Casey, or should I specifically say Raph's story, it's cool because it obviously ends up telling you that this is not real, this is not what happens when they go back in time, so it's just a fake journal. But it's also kind of really cool in how the fact that Raph and Casey get teleported to like a island in the middle of nowhere kind of leads to this butterfly effect, which changes the world and humanity into mole people. It's just a really cool thing again, really cool concept like the butterfly effect. Again, only Mikey's story is just kind of dumb because it just ends with the Justice Force becoming babies, which is just dumb. And I really, really don't like that. I think it's very dumb. But yeah, overall really good episode. And again, at the end of the episode, they reveal that obviously the turtles managed to go back to the past. We're gonna talk about more, more about that in a bit. But yeah, overall, really good episode. I like it. It's probably my favorite episode of season 6. Then, at number 20, we're gonna have an episode which I really like because of what it could have led to, but sadly we didn't get anything to do with that in that season, but I just really liked it. That being Season 7, Episode 1, Tempus Fugit.
Your doom is at hand, worms! The turtles will be my prize!
Great! 3 shredders going at it in an all-out rumble! And we're caught in the middle!
Yeah, this episode is only cool because of the 3 shredders. And again, we don't really get anything to do with that, which is a shame. Because it's so infuriating what the company who owned the show, 4Kids, I guess at the time, did with the show by not allowing them to commit to anything. Because in Season 6, it was worse than Season 4 and Season 3 and Season 1 of the original seasons. But it wasn't necessarily bad, like it was still enjoyable. It was obviously less serious and it was more comedic and sci-fi themed, but it was still engaging. And I feel like if they allowed the show to continue with that setting and concepts for like 2 more seasons, we could have gotten the highs of Season 4 in just a different take of it, you know? But we didn't get that because they didn't allow the show to commit to it after Season 6, so we just get a quick traveling back to the past in the first episode of Season 7, and we don't really get to see any of the villains from Season 6 anymore, outside of Viral, I guess, but again, that just feels tacked on a little bit. And with Season 7, we kind of get the same case, where we start to build up certain stories in Season 7, but we don't really get to commit to it, like the 3 Shredders, the Shredder War. Cool concept! How the fuck did Sharel come back? How the fuck did the True Shredder come back? That's fucking cool. And there's the Cyber Shredder as well. But we don't really get to see that because the show fucking ends before we get to that, and it's a damn shame. It's a shame that they didn't let the show commit to any of these things. And even then, I still don't think Season 7 would have ended up being as good as any of the other seasons, because I just hate the art style of Season 7. I hate that the turtles have pupils. I hate that they wear clothes more. That just doesn't vibe with me. But this episode and the concept behind the 3 Shredders and Splinter getting split into bits obviously sets up everything that happens in Season 7. But it's just the concept of the 3 Shredders that really makes it for me. And it's the reason why it's on this list. Because I just really like the idea. And this is the only glimpse that we get of that idea. So for number 19, we're gonna have another 2-parter. That being Season 1's Episode 25 and 26, The Search for Splinter.
Stop! Listen to me! You must get off of there immediately!
I can't move my feet!
I can't stop it! It's too late. They're gone.
In Season 4, which is probably my second favorite season, I mean, I haven't really thought about which seasons are my favorite or whatever, but there's certain things about Season 4 and Season 1 where there's a lot of cool mystery and world building in those episodes, and specifically in this episode, really more into the mystery and exploring that mystery in this episode, because in the episode, as the name implies, we are looking for Splinter, who disappears during the battle versus the Shredder in the previous 3 episodes, I think it was. And we don't know what happened to him, really. So throughout these 2 episodes, the Turtles, Emperor April, and Casey are looking for him, and we slowly start to uncover the mystery surrounding the TCRI building. And to me, that is really cool for some reason. Again, I think this might be a lot due to nostalgia, because I think this was another episode that I remember watching around the time when I watched season 6 on TV. So my nostalgia might be speaking, but I just really enjoyed the mystery of them having to get into the building and find what is going on, and then getting forced onto a teleport platform that shoots them all the way across the universe. I don't know what's with me and teleporting in this show that fascinates me, but it really fucking does, especially in season 1, because there's another episode that Big Notes from the Underground where it has forced teleportation, which, I don't know, it just gives me this weird feeling that is really satisfying to me. I don't know, it's weird, I know it's weird, it comes off as weird, but I really like that feeling, and I just, that definitely is one of the reasons why I like this episode, because of them trying to look for, to find the answers to this mystery and find Splinter and go deeper and deeper into this facility, and them getting then teleported right away across the universe with them not being able to do anything about it. It's just a really cool thing for me for some reason, and I really enjoy it, and it leads into some really cool stuff in season 2, so there's that as well. But yeah, it's a really fun episode. The tone and mystery is the reason why I love it so much. At number 18, we're gonna jump to season 4 again, with season 4, episode 18, Trouble with Augie.
The Brotherhood call this place the Forbidden Zone. No one is allowed in here. They told me it was strictly off limits.
And I think I know why. I don't think they wanted you to see this. Look. It's a mass grave.
It can't be. They told me. They said they wanted to help us.
This episode is one of the episodes that I believe I own on one of those DVDs. I think it's on this one, if I remember correctly. Let me check. Yeah, it is. I don't know if the episodes are consecutive, because I'm not sure that they are. Because it looks like they're not, but this episode was one of my favorite episodes when I was a kid, when I watched this show originally on all these 5 DVD discs. And it's just the atmosphere, and again with the teleportation, this time to a different dimension. It's just really cool. It really fascinates me for some reason. I really like it, and I really like the story that Donatello and April find a message from her uncle Augie, and then they travel to a different dimension where they find him. And this is actually also not the first time that they've traveled to a different dimension. In a previous episode, they got transported by the same artifact to another dimension again. And it's kind of referenced as well in this episode, because I believe in that episode there were some giant beasts that end up killing the dinosaurs or alligators or whatever you want to call those monsters in this episode. So that is really cool reference to that. But it's just the kind of morbid atmosphere of this episode, and some of the imagery, like the mass grave with the skeletons, like that shit fucked with my head when I was a kid. That was, I wouldn't say horrifying, but it was like a dark imagery for a kid's show, I gotta say. It's fucking dark, and I really like it. I really do, and I really love what the episode implies, pretty much, that happened to the people of this city or this planet or whatever you want to call it. They got eaten by these crocodiles, let's call them, and it's almost like pretty fucking explicit. They have one of them gnawing on a bone, and then we have the skulls. It's pretty fucking blatant, and I really like that. I really do. And I really love how they manipulate Augie, that they're coming in peace and whatever, only for them to get tricked by April when she sends them to the place with the wasps, I think it was. And she destroys the teleport so they cannot escape. Again, with that fascination that I have with forced teleportations and not being allowed to teleport away. It's just really fascinating to me for some reason. And I just love that he gets stuck in this horrifying place. I really fucking do. I really do. Honestly, this episode probably could have been even higher, but I feel like every episode above this one is just so good. This one is just gonna be here by comparison. It's gonna be worse by comparison because there's some really good episodes of this list. Until this point, it was just the episodes that I pointed out were just episodes that I had some interest in, but from now on up, we're getting into the really good stuff. At number 17, we have Season 4's Episode 9, Aliens Among Us.
Any ideas?
Just one.
Jump!
I really like this episode. But the thing is, when I was a kid, when I watched this episode, I was very confused by what was happening in this episode. Because in this episode, if you didn't know, we get a masquerade alien invasion planned by Bishop just so he could get funding for his Earth Protection Force. Because in a previous episode, the President of the United States said that they're gonna cut funding and that the EPF is the prime target for that cut of funding. And the thing is, when I was a kid, I kind of didn't get that. Even though it's like mentioned in this episode, I didn't know why he did that. So it was just this really weird alien invasion in TMNT. It's just really fascinating again. There's something about this show that this just kind of like generic, in a way, concepts just become so fascinating just because of the world that this show has built. It's really cool to me how he kidnaps the President of the United States with just how an alien invasion would. It's just a really cool episode all around, but I think the reason why I like it the most, it's just kind of the tone again, and kind of the visuals, because there's a lot of really pretty and colorful imagery in this episode. Like the tint of the colors is really kind of aesthetically pleasing, and I really enjoy it. That is actually a thing that is pretty common for pretty much all episodes of Season 4, so you're gonna see me bring that up many times. But it's just the tone of this episode, of this just being like a weird alien invasion. And as a kid, because I obviously, as I said, didn't know that this was like Bishop's plan, and he, because he wanted more money for his organization, it just gave me this weird feeling that I still have when watching this episode. It's just a weird tone of the turtles dealing with a fake alien invasion. And I really enjoy it. I don't know really how to explain much more than that, but I really like it. I do. And again, this might be just nostalgia speaking for me, but I enjoy it. I enjoy pretty much every moment in this episode. Next up, at number 16, I definitely have some things to say about this episode, and it's definitely not nostalgia being the reason why I like this episode. That being Season 6, Episode 22, Head of State.
So, based on your current DNA, I believe it would be possible. Genetic advances over the last century make creating a viable body based on your former physical structure nothing more than a minor procedure.
What's the catch? I become your personal slave, toiling away in a secret lab?
Actually, the Department of Agriculture is interested in your mousers. I'd like you to meet with them.
Me? Really? Well, I suppose it's my civic duty, Mr. President. Say, is there a vice president?
I just don't get this place. Bishop's a good guy. We save our arch-villain Baxter Stockman from becoming a crispy critter. And giant mousers are gonna work on a farm? The future gives me a headache!
Well, if Bishop and Baxter can change, maybe there's hope for all the other monsters out there.
No monsters? Let's hope it doesn't put us out of a job!
Mikey, I got a feeling that's not gonna be a problem.
This episode is another episode of Season 6 that I actually like a lot. And I actually didn't watch when the show aired originally. I actually didn't know that Baxter survived to 2105. I think I remember Bishop surviving, but again, I didn't really watch much of Bishop when I originally watched the show, like 12 years ago. So I was barely familiar with Bishop in the first place, so I can't really tell you whether I remembered Bishop being there, but I definitely didn't know that Stockman also survived. And this episode essentially redeems both characters, which I kind of like, but I really feel like as good of a redemption as it is, it could be better, and I feel like it clashes a little bit with what their characters were before. Like, we obviously learned in episode 5 of season 6 that Bishop became a good guy, which was honestly kind of interesting, and I wish more of the season kind of had Bishop as a character, because I think we only had him in like a couple episodes, which I enjoyed seeing him in season 6, definitely made the season more enjoyable for me. But in this episode, we get more of an explanation of exactly how he became a good guy, where after experimenting on aliens and trying to make an army, Stockman ends up blowing up his lab and releasing some of the COD aliens or mutants or whatever it was. And that mutant ends up saving Bishop, because Bishop gets stuck, I think, under rubble or something, and the alien picks him up and carries him away, which kinda fundamentally changes Bishop into a person who thinks that if an alien who was put through torture is good enough to save him after what he has done to him, then how can Bishop do any less? Which is really interesting, considering the backstory for Bishop, which we learn in an episode in season 4 called Outbreak, I believe it was, where we learned that Bishop originally was like a soldier, I think in the Civil War in the USA or something, in some kind of war for sure, I don't know which one, so I don't really say too much, but he was a soldier who was caught by aliens and experimented on. And for him to end up changing his mind after doing the same thing to an alien, which ended up saving him, I guess brings his character full circle in a way, so it is somewhat satisfying. But I feel like, to me, just Bishop was more interesting of a character as somebody who, at the very least, is a little bit more conniving. Is that the word I'm looking for? I'm not sure, but like, I just like him more as a character who has some hidden motives, which I think he's had a little bit in season 6, and maybe even in this episode, because he certainly loves being the president of the Pan-Galactic Alliance or whatever. So I wish they kind of played up a little bit more of his hidden motives there, even though he's like a good guy and now he does things for the good of humanity and blah blah blah. I still wish they still had some of the hidden motives with his character. But I do like the redemption, because now he's a good guy and now I can root for him and not root against him. And this episode also, as I said, redeems Stockman. Not so much, I mean, I don't really remember exactly whether he does anything good in this episode to deserve redemption, but Bishop ends up saving him and even calls him a friend, so that is really cool, and ends up kind of, at the end of the day, giving him a body, finally, again. So that is really cool. Like, I feel like this episode is more of a redemption for Bishop, but it's still really fucking cool. Although it's kind of sad and gives me a little bit of an existential crisis when I think about the fact that Stockman and Bishop both fucking survived to 2105, but the Turtles didn't. And yeah, we learn in other episodes how Bishop survives by essentially cloning himself and transferring his brain to the new body. so he probably has done that again. But it's just like, why couldn't the turtles survive? Like, it's kind of weird to me to have these two continue to live on, but the turtles be dead. And it just kind of reminds me of my own life and how eventually it's going to end. But yeah, I really like this episode. It has a lot of meaty character development, which I don't really think season 6 has much of, so there's that. I don't know. I really like this episode. At number 15, we have season 4, episode 11, Still Nobody.
Watching over the city, I have learned the sad truth that violence begets violence. They say nobody can break the cycle. That nobody cares. Nobody can do anything about it.
Yo, I hear you might have a little something for me.
You didn't get this from me, right?
Get what?
Exactly.
Nobody tries to change things. And they're right. Because I'm still nobody. And I do care.
Huh?
I will try to change things. I will make a difference.
If you watched my reactions to the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2003 series, you know how much I love Nobody. He's such a badass and cool fucking character. I really like his character. And yeah, he's a Batman ripoff, but I feel like he's more interesting to me than Batman, in a way. And I even said, I think in my reactions to season 5, ironically, that I think it would be really cool if this show, like this specific incarnation of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, got adapted into like either a cinematic universe or a TV universe where we have all these concepts and all these villains and characters and have Nobody and I think his name was Raptor from another episode from season 4, like the flying dude with the white wings, get their own movies. Like, that's how much I love that character and I want him explored. I want to see movies with him. But in this episode, he teams up with the Turtles for the second time. I was contemplating whether I wanted to put this episode or his beginning episode, like the episode he debuts in. But I decided to go with this one because it's in one of my favorite seasons of the show. And it also has Leo being more of a badass character, again, because it's season 4. And I really love how in this episode, it's not even like the Turtles necessarily having a reason to team up with him and fight for something that is threatening them personally, but instead they're just helping him take down villains. Like, it's kind of cool to me how in this episode the Turtles are essentially more of a crime fighters rather than, I don't know, just typical Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle stuff. Because, like, this is the episode in which they feel the most like superheroes, or something along those lines. And I really like that. I really like the way they plan out the sting and how they take out the Turks. That's the name of the bad guys in this episode, the group. And I really love the speech that Nobody gives, and the crew of the Turks all take off their jackets. Like, that really moved me when I was a kid even. I really liked that episode. It was just really cool. And we have some really cool action in this episode as well. It's just an all-around fun episode, you know. This show, especially season 4 for me, is peak. It's so good. The tone, the world is so damn good. And yeah, I'm sorry if I'm struggling to really explain why I love these episodes, but I just love them so much. And it's been years, so I feel like I really can't delve into that many details. But yeah, I really like this episode. At number 14, we're gonna have, guess what? Another season 4 episode. That being episode 17, Outbreak.
too long, our world, our history, has been influenced by extraterrestrial threats. I know this all too well. No! My purpose has always been clear. Defend against the threat. Rebuild humanity to resist invasion. It hasn't always been easy. There are tough choices that need to be made. Someone has to stop this alien plague. It was a vow I made long ago. And I intend to keep it.
So that is the episode which I mentioned earlier, in which we learn that Bishop was experimented on by aliens, which is a really cool backstory and explains his hate for aliens and everything. And it kind of sets up this mystery with how the hell has he been alive for so long. And even as a kid, I actually didn't quite understand what the hell was happening in this episode when they showed Bishop, obviously as an old soldier, and him getting put up into the alien spaceship. Like, I didn't know what to think as a kid. I don't know whether I thought that it was Bishop, but I feel like after he moves his consciousness to the new bodies, when I get and understand what the hell was happening there. And I gotta say, some of the imagery in this episode is so damn cool. Like when Bishop transfers his consciousness to the new body, his old body literally fucking disintegrates, and you get to see his skull and everything. If you ask me, this is more gruesome than Baxter Stockman's body falling apart. Like, this is worse. You see Bishop's skin fall apart and you see his skull kind of melt. Like, it's pretty fucking dark shit if you ask me. And it's worse than Stockman, because Stockman is just kind of like a Frankenstein monster. He looks like Frankenstein's monster, which I don't think, for me at least, it's not that creepy. But this was pretty fucking creepy. And even outside of that, we have a lot of really cool looking mutants in this episode that mutated because the aliens from the episode Aliens Among Us, when they were hit, they ended up exploding and spilling out ooze, which went into the sewers, which ended up mutating people and creatures. And in this episode, the turtles kind of start finding out that there are mutants all around everywhere, while Bishop and Stockman are trying to contain it. And there's some really cool mutant designs in this episode. And I'm talking specifically about the stills that we get in this episode that I think Stockman shows to Bishop as like pictures of people who have seen these mutants. And we actually have a really dark scene in this episode, like pretty fucking dark again, even for this show, of a guy, I think some kind of like a plumber or something, who goes down the drain into the sewers, into the dark, and he ends up screaming in a pretty fucking chilling scream. Like, even as a kid, that scares the shit out of me. Like, at the very least, kind of unnerves me. Like, it's pretty creepy like that. And then when you see him later on in the episode as this mutated creature, that is the creature that ends up stabbing Donatello, which ends up with him mutating, and we go back to the Good Genes episode. Really, really cool. I really like it. I really like this episode. It's a very meaty episode that is a continuation of the ongoing plot of season 4 and continues to set up what happens even afterwards. But yeah, some really cool fights. Donnie getting stabbed, that's really cool as well. I really like it. It's a really cool episode. At number 13, we're gonna have a little bit more toned down of an episode. Not really anything dark happening in it, but it's also still a really, really cool and entertaining episode. That being Season 3, Episode 11, The Lesson.
About it.
Get him!
That's right! You better run! You bullies better watch it! Cause Arnold Casey Jones ain't letting you push nobody around no more! Gora! Gora! Goongala! Goongala! Goongala!
I feel like a lot of people like this episode. I'm not exactly quite versed into the opinions regarding this show's episode, but I feel like a lot of people like this episode because it explores the backstory of the turtles. It shows us the turtles when they were little turtle tots and how they ended up meeting with Casey even when they were kids. And it's kind of like a shame that Casey doesn't end up hearing the story of how they trained him as a kid and realize, hey, I met you guys when I was a kid. That's kind of cool. It's also a little bit, makes it a little bit contrived that I end up meeting him all these years later. I actually don't remember in this episode whether the turtles realize that it is Casey. Because I don't think they do actually. No, they don't, right? Because close to the end of the episode, before we get the really badass scene at the end where Casey as a kid beats up the bullies, which is really fucking satisfying, and we get to hear where he learned the catchphrase of Gungara, or Gungala, should I say. The turtles, April asks the turtles what happened to that kid, and they say they don't know. So I feel like if Casey was there, they would have realized that it was obviously Casey, you know? But I really like how the turtles, as kids, constantly switch clothes and switch out each other to teach Casey different lessons. And the thing is, when I watched this episode as a kid, I tried to learn those lessons too, you know? I feel like I shouldn't be the only one who has done that. Like, I tried to see what the turtles were saying with those lessons and kind of try to internalize them so I can become a ninja turtle just like them. And that's kind of why it holds a special place in my heart, because for an episode called The Lesson, it really tried to teach me certain things. And I really like that. I really did. I really do. I think it's really fun. It's a really cool episode. At number 12, again, guess what episode the season is gonna be from? That's right, Season 4, Episode 7, A Wing and a Prayer.
So, who do we help?
We're gods among insects. You always refuse to see that.
That guy certainly doesn't sound too friendly.
Maybe we should take them both out.
Man, one turtle with Toad was bad enough.
Your lack of vision will be your downfall, old friend.
Yeah, I really like this episode. I know I keep saying that, but that's true for all these episodes. I really, really like them. And the higher we get on this list, the more I like them. So the fact that we're very close to the top 10, you should really tell you how much I like this episode. But the reason why I like this episode in particular is because it continues the world building of this show, which I fucking love the world building of this show. I feel like at a certain point, I don't really like this show so much because it's a TMNT show, as much as I like it just because it's a really cool world. Like, I could watch this cartoon even if it had nothing to do with Shredder or the Turtles. In a way, that is kind of the least favorite thing for me. Because even recently when I was watching Jay's reviews retrospective for season 4, I think it was. The fact that he kind of skips over most of these episodic stories that don't really have much to do with the overall plot of the show kind of makes, and the fact that I didn't really enjoy what he was retrospecting on kind of made me realize how much I actually enjoy these more episodic stories over the overarching plot with the Shredder. Because, like, for me, you could cut out the Turtles and the Shredder and I could still enjoy the show for how creative it is with its world building. Because in this episode, we get to see those flying people who are called avians, who are people who got mutated by the Elentians, who were the people who owned the city underground in the Notes from the Underground episode. And we also got an episode earlier in the season which is called, I think, The Sons of the Silent Age, with another group of mutant creatures mutated by the Elentians. But unlike that one, I feel like just this one is a little bit more interesting to me because, I mean, the action is really cool with the turtles getting jetpacks and flying around. It's really fun. And it's just, again, similarly to how much I like Nobody as a character. Raptor is a really cool character to me. As well as his friend or brother. I don't remember whether it's his brother or not, but the other bad guy in this episode, Raptor, I think his name is, are both really cool. They kind of remind me of the Doctor and the Master from Doctor Who in a way, because they're like very close. They used to be close, but they disagreed on how things should be run, and that kind of led them to become enemies of each other. And I really like the fights between them as well, with Memphis having these metal wings because his white wings got cut and he was banished on Earth. It's really cool to me. I really like it. And we also get a little bit of a scene reveal that we kind of already knew, that the lair in the 2003 series is owned by the Elentians, or should I say they build it, which to me is really fucking cool. This is what I say with the world building of this show. Like, I've been watching the 2012 TMNT series, but the lair in that one, it's just kind of And even the lair in this show that we get at the end of season 4 doesn't really do it that much for me. I kind of like it, but the reason why I like it is completely not because of anything that has to do with the show, but more because of my personal experiences. But I love the original lair in this show because of the history it has. It's not built for the Turtles, it was built by somebody else, and it was there long before the Turtles ever showed up. So it has its history, it has its mysteries. And it's really cool to me. And it also has a really fucking cool design. I'm really shocked that I haven't seen that many people talk about things like that when it comes to this show. Like how good the world building is, how good the lair of this show is, and how it doesn't compare to any other lair. I really like it, I really do. And in this episode, as I said, Raptor ends up revealing that there's many more crystals in the lair than the Turtles thought, because Donatello supposedly looked through this place for more crystals, but he couldn't find any. But obviously, because Raptor is a descendant of the people mutated by the Elentians, he's familiar with the markings of an Elentian place, so he knows how to trigger that. And it's just really cool. It kind of continues the world building of this world, which I really fucking like. You guys wouldn't believe what episode we have at number 11. Guess what? Another season 4 one! Yeah, I know! That being season 4, episode 10, Dragons Rising.
You're done, hon!
Say goodbye, hun!
Help me!
I know I'm gonna regret this.
But my old man taught me that you gotta stand up and do the right thing, no matter how hard it is to do.
Your old man was wrong, Jones.
I think it's pretty fucking obvious why I love this episode. It's a really cool episode for Han and Casey's relationship because they're kind of like enemies pretty much. Because when Casey was a kid, Han, who is of unclear age, ended up burning down his father's store, and obviously because of that, Casey hates the purple dragons and Han in particular, and he has hated them for the whole show's run. But in this episode, we kind of finally get a really cool face-off between Casey and Han. But before we even get to that really cool fight, we have another sequence of a kind of like a planned sting that we had in the Still Nobody episode. It's very reminiscent of that, with the turtles planning how they're gonna take down the purple dragon's drop of I think something that they were selling, like guns or whatever. It's really cool how they plan it out and how they go through it, and how they have to infiltrate helicopters, and there's these flying hoverboards, so to speak. It's all really cool stuff. And then they have a fight on the helicopter with Casey almost falling out of the helicopter. It's really fucking cool. And then we obviously have the fight between Han and Casey on the truck, which is really fucking cool. And even as a kid, I was blown away by how good it is. Like, actual live action dramas aren't this good a lot of the fucking time. So I really love it, especially the moment where Han is hanging onto the bottom of the truck and is almost touching the ground, and Casey obviously is above him and is about to punch him. And even the soundtrack of the show kind of stops for a second, and you hear this heartbeat with Casey being ready to punch Han and kill him. But he doesn't. Instead, he helps him. And obviously, Han ends up escaping and throwing Casey under the bus, so to speak. He didn't throw him under the truck, but he spins the truck, so it ends up crashing. So it's a really cool face-off that I feel like it ends up in a pretty impactful way, but I feel like it doesn't quite end up in a satisfying way because it doesn't really resolve the relationship between the two of them, in my opinion at least. Because yeah, they fought. It was really cool. He had the upper hand and he chose not to take it. And the scene as a whole is impactful, but I feel like it doesn't really do anything to finish off their relationship. And then we have the famous Leo outrage scene where he screams at the guys for being so incompetent to the point they only were able to stop half of the trucks that Purple Dragon were driving. Which is really interesting that he brings that up, because the Purple Dragons are kind of supposed to be the butt of the joke in this show in a way, because they're never really particularly capable, especially compared to the Foot Clan. But after the disappearance of Shredder, Han reforms the Purple Dragons into much more competent people, evil guys. So it's really cool how now that they're more competent, even the turtles are not really able to completely defeat them and overwhelm them like before. But again, that outrage by Leo is just another continuation of his arc in this season, where he just becomes more and more enraged and more like Raph. And it's just, for some reason, so satisfying to watch. Like, I know that Jay's reviews brought up that you either love or hate this arc with Leonardo, because it can get, I can definitely see how to some people it could get grating that he constantly is angry just like Raph, and even more than Raph. But to me, that is just compelling for some reason. I really like the shit that Leo says, even in this scene, and every time he gets enraged like that, it's just so satisfying. Because usually I feel like he's kind of the most boring turtle in a way, because he doesn't really have much of a character other than being the honorable leader, compared to Raph, who is the angry one. And there's something that you can kind of more bite your teeth into in terms of development. Or Mikey, who is the idiot, who can become less of an idiot as the show goes on. Or Donatello, who... I mean, he's also been kind of my least favorite in that regard. But Leo in this season really gets so entertaining when he gets enraged. And this is one of my favorite episodes in that regard. Because after he screams at them for that, he just leaves. And then we end the episode in a bittersweet note with Casey going to his father's grave with Raph, Mikey, and Donnie in the background. Like, this show was not afraid to show this kind of like dark truths of life, that people die. Because other shows, and it's really crazy that this kind of shit was coming from fucking 4Kids, who famously changed the way the characters were put in a dark game in Yu-Gi-Oh! Into them being sent to the Shadow Realm. I mean, in a way, it is somewhat of an accurate representation of what the Yamino game, which translates to the dark game, is, but in that one it's more of hell rather than the Shadow Realm, which again, I think it's an accurate representation, but it is a meme at this point how that is just cheesy 4Kids stuff, when they clearly do some dark shit when they own the IP, I guess. But yeah, I really like that. It's a really cool episode. It gives development to Casey and Hunt's relationship, and a really cool moment for Leo continuing to be enraged and angrier, getting angrier and angrier. At number 10, we're gonna have Season 4, Episode 14, The Ancient One.
I'm sorry. I did the best I could. I did the best I could. There wasn't any more I could have done.
If there was nothing more you could have done, why do you punish yourself so?
This episode, despite the fact that it actually has a lot of development for Leo, because it's pretty much an episode focused on him and getting through the stuff that he's been suffering from after he and his family had to sacrifice themselves to destroy the Shredder. In this episode, his rage finally erupts and he ends up hurting Splinter, so he goes on a journey of betterment where he meets the Ancient One, who teaches him a few lessons that obviously tie into what he's suffering from, which is post-traumatic stress disorder from the fact that he wasn't able to save his family. Because even though he realizes that there was nothing that he can do to save them, he hates himself for that, and that's why throughout this whole season he's been constantly pushing the guys to train harder and harder and to be prepared all the time, because he doesn't want to get into a situation where they will not be able to survive because he's scared of losing his family like that. And in this episode, it obviously culminates with him realizing if there was nothing he can do, if there was nothing anymore that he can do, then why is he beating himself over that? He did the best he could. And it's a really cool episode, and all the lessons that he learns throughout the episode, especially the first two where he is met by these Yetis or whatever, and he has to stop being angry for them to let him go, or when he has to give up his pride and surrender so the ghosts don't kill him. It's really cool to me, and again it continues Season 4's trend of world building and giving these cool things. Like, see how much cool shit there is in the world of TMNT 2003. Yetis, ghosts who want to kill you if you don't surrender. That is some cool fucking shit. Again, I would totally watch this show even if it wasn't a TMNT show. That's how good it is, honestly. And I really wish there was another show that is spiritually just like this one. If you guys know any shows like that, I would love to watch it, but I doubt there is one. But yeah, I really like that this episode finally develops Leonardo and pushes him through the shit that he's been suffering. Obviously, he's not completely cured because he still has visually he still has the part of his shell that is gone on the back there, so he's never gonna be completely cured. But it finally developed his character past that. So for the people for whom it was annoying to see him constantly be angry like that, this could be a really cool episode. For me, it's just the character development. I don't necessarily like it because, again, afterwards we don't really get enraged Leo anymore, although he still feels more brutal and more angry than he was before what he had to do to sacrifice him and his family to destroy the Shredder. So he still is not completely back to how the way he was, but he obviously is better. So I really like that. I really do. At number 9, we're gonna have an episode that I'm sure all of you expected that it was gonna be on this list because everybody loves this episode. That being Season 3, Episode 21, Same as It Never Was.
Attention, servants of the Shredder. Your Lord and Master will now address you.
For those of you still living under the illusion that you will have freedom, know this. My armies have exterminated the last pockets of resistance, and I now control the entire planet. The traitorous Utrom scientists I have captured are completing a colossal transmat device. With it, I will send forth my armies and enslave the stars, one world after another. There is no hope. There is only the Shredder.
Remember, the Shredder is always watching.
And similarly to Insane in the Membrane, personally, I don't really like this episode as much as most people do. The biggest reason being that I feel like as cool of a concept as it is, and as much as I like it, it's a very enjoyable episode. It's a dark episode and everything. It just feels a little rushed. Like, I feel like this episode deserves to be like at least like a 2-parter, preferably more than a 2-parter, maybe even a 3-parter it should be. Because the concept of one of the turtles getting transported to the future or an alternative future in which they were supposedly gone, and in the meantime Splinter is dead, Mikey loses an arm, Leonardo can't see, and I think Raph also has some injuries in terms of his eyes or whatever. It's really fucking cool. Like, this post-apocalyptic Shredder-controlled future is really cool. I really like it. And it obviously foreshadows what the Turtles end up having to do at the end of the season with Michelangelo, Raph, and Leo dying in that post-apocalyptic future where they are able to destroy the Shredder, foreshadowing that they are all gonna have to sacrifice themselves to kill the Shredder in the current timeline. It's really cool, but again, it just feels a little rushed, so I don't really feel the emotion of Leonardo dying, or Raphael dying, or Mikey dying. Like, yeah, it's sad and it's dark, but it feels rushed. It just feels rushed for me. So I like this episode. I love it for all the same reasons that everybody does. But I just feel like it's a little rushed. Like, for me, this episode is more of a 9 out of 10 rather than a 10 out of 10 that I feel like most people would put it. But yeah, if you disagree with me and think it's a perfect episode, that's fine. I don't really think there's much flaws with this episode. Pretty much only that. The fact that it's just a little rushed. It doesn't really feel like it gives the concept that it is going for complete justice. It does it really well, but not perfect. And that's kind of my issue with it. But again, the fact that I've put it at number 9 should show you how good of an episode it is and how much I truly enjoy it. And also, there's a part of me that is a little bit of a contrarian, so I'm always gonna go against the popular opinion, more or less. And it's not even really that it's intentional, I just kind of do that and try to logic my way into why I feel like that. Yeah, that's beside the point. And at number 8, we're gonna have, guess what? Another Season 4 episode. Yeah, I know, I've been putting a lot of Season 4 episodes into this list, pretty much almost the whole season, but what am I supposed to do? I just fucking love Season 4. big reason being because that's the season that I watched as a kid the most. That's the season that I own the most discs of, I feel like. But again, I just feel like the episodes in season 4 are the best to me. But yeah, if you disagree with me and you don't like season 4, that's fine. I'm not trying to say that it's objectively the best or whatever, but I really personally enjoy it. And at number 8, we're gonna have season 4, episode 6, Grudge Match.
Do it! Finish me!
I don't think so. My father taught me better than that. Besides, you're already finished.
For me, this episode is essentially the Battle Nexus in one episode. That's kind of the biggest reason why I put this episode, because I like the concept of the Battle Nexus with the turtles having to fight through it. And I don't remember whether as a kid I ended up watching the Battle Nexus episodes. I definitely saw them at some point, but it's just the concept is really cool, and the way how Michelangelo ended up winning both the original Battle Nexus and the rematch in this episode is really cool to me. Especially because in this episode, it really shows how much of a badass Michelangelo is. Really funny how I recently also reacted to the one episode of the 2012 TMNT where we get Mikey be a really cool badass. That is probably my favorite episode of the 2012 series. And in the case of the 2003 series, it's also one of my favorite episodes. I really like how it shows how Mikey is a really talented ninja. He's just lazy, and when he actually focuses and puts effort, he's amazing. And I actually kind of relate to that. Not to toot my own horn or anything, or to seem super egotistical, but I feel like, and from my experiences, I feel like I am a lot like that as well. Because throughout like elementary school, I literally didn't have, I think I had only like one grade, which was less than an A, essentially. And afterwards, until I think it was 7th grade, I also had pretty high grades. Things were getting harder for me, but I still had pretty high grades. Like it was mostly 5s, B's and A's. But after that, I just couldn't be bothered to really study or keep pay attention to stuff. But I clearly could if I wanted. I just didn't really feel like it because I feel like there was no reason. Like I literally haven't used any of my math skills, for example, that I learned in school, and I've probably forgotten most of them. And I just stopped seeing the logic behind it, so I didn't really put the effort. But I feel like just like Mikey, if I wanted to, I would be really good. Because for the things that I actually put effort in, I think I'm actually pretty competent. Again, not to seem too self-aggrandizing, but that's how I feel, you know? That's how I think I am. And again, with something that I haven't mentioned for quite a few of these episodes, the visuals in these episodes are again really cool, specifically when Leo is walking with Michelangelo to the top of the hill or the waterfall above the Battle Nexus arena, where he's trying to teach him to meditate. The visuals with the color grading is so beautiful, dude. Season 4 is crazy beautiful like that. There's so many episodes like that that are beautiful, and I really like the visuals around that scene specifically. And I really love how after Mikey constantly reminding everybody and throwing it in their noses that he won the Battle Nexus Championship, the original one in season 2's finale, I think it was, where he kind of won on a technicality because he accidentally managed to defeat the guy who he ends up fighting in this episode. everybody was angry at him for constantly repeating that, and then in this episode he shows that he truly, genuinely won the tournament, or could have won the tournament originally. It's really cool. I love how Raph mentions that he's gonna have to move out after this. It's just really funny saying at the end of the episode. But yeah, it's a really fun and entertaining episode, and for the Mikey fans out there, it's an amazing episode. For number 7, we're gonna have a Season 1 two-parter, that being Season 1, Episode 17 and 18, The Shredder Strikes Back.
Hey guys, I'm really starting to get worried. Leo should have checked in by now.
I know this is a first, but I'm thinking Mikey's right.
Master Splinter?
Go.
Jeez, what if something really happened to him?
Leo! Leo, what happened? Who did this to you? I'm gonna find out who did this.
No, Raph. Wait. He's back. The Shredder.
I mean, it was obvious that I was gonna put this two-parter on this list. It has the iconic Leonardo flying through a window scene, which even the 2012 series did pretty well, I would say, which I reacted to recently. So of course I was gonna add this episode, but the biggest reason why I add this episode is, and you can even see it in my reaction to that two-parter, that when I reacted to it originally, the fighting choreography in this episode is fucking insane. Like, again, if you check out my reactions to the first season of the 2010 TMNT, you'll notice that for a lot of the first season, pretty much most of it, the fighting just isn't particularly exciting for me. It's not necessarily bad, but a lot of it is just the turtles punching somebody, then it cuts to black and it cuts to a shot of the person on the ground, and it just kind of feels boring. We have some cool fights here and there, but most of them are not particularly satisfying. This episode, on the other hand, is so satisfying. The choreography is so fun to watch. It's so... I mean, I don't know what other word to describe it other than catchy. The choreography is catchy. It's satisfying to watch, and it's just very enjoyable. From the beginning, when Leonardo is fighting all those ninjas who wear him down a little by little, to then once he is down and thrown to the window, everybody else having to keep up the fight so they can actually get out of there. It's just all really cool, really well choreographed, and really has quite a few fun moments, like all the turtles pointing out the really cool hats that the special food ninjas have, which was a really fun moment and I really liked it. Then Casey shows up out of nowhere to help them. That is really cool. And to me, it's really cool how they end up being pushed into essentially a closet where they get stuck in and they get supposedly blown up, and you don't even see them survive in the episode. That is really fucking cool. I really like that. It's, again, the feeling that I get from that scene is, again, reminiscent of all those forced teleportation scenes that I talked about earlier. But I still really, really enjoy this. The fight choreography of this episode being so damn good. Even the Shredder is actually pretty good in this episode. Like, he's menacing, he's scary, he's terrifying. I really enjoy him in this episode. And I feel like in this episode he actually doesn't really do the ninjas attack crap, but again, don't quote me on that. I just really like this episode, these two parts. At number 6, we have another season 4 episode. I know, it's getting fucking old. But we have season 4, episode 15, Scion of the Shredder.
In the name of Orokusaki, hunt them down! Destroy them! They cannot be allowed to live! And tear this filthy place apart! Leave nothing standing!
I think it's pretty obvious why I like this episode so much. Because Karai becomes the Shredder and completely obliterates the lair that the turtles have been living in for 4 seasons now. Like, that is kind of crazy, and there's no Leo there. It's kind of surprising that he actually doesn't blame himself for the fact that he was not there to protect them and to protect the lair, which I think it could have been interesting to do, but again, could have been a little bit of reverting on the character development that he goes through in the Asian one. But I just really like how she completely obliterates them and how they slowly are pushed out of it in the different vehicles that they have. They're forced to escape and they look like they get destroyed. But as we all know, they're actually not. But yeah, it's just really cool how little by little they get destroyed. I honestly like the episode after this a little bit more, which we're gonna get into in a little bit. But I also like this episode because we get to see all the stuff, all the things, the events that ended up in them having to run away and seeing the destruction of the lair. It's just a really cool episode, but I do like more the consequences that it has rather than the specific episode itself. But obviously we have to point out that the episode itself is really cool because for the little time that Karai was the Shredder, she managed to do this fucking much of a damage. It's crazy how far they were pushed in this episode, the Turtles. At number 5, we have something that I feel like if you guys watched my reactions to the 2003 series, you probably would have thought that I would put this at number 1, but it's not. It's at number 5. That being Season 1, Episode 13, 14, and 15. Notes from the Underground.
What the shell? Whoa. Where am I? Hello? Anybody here?
And again, I've already explained why I love these 3-parters so much in my reaction to the said 3-parter, but to kind of put it as short as I can, I just really like the fact that the concept of the episode where it's essentially them going deep down into the earth to figure out a creepy mystery. It's just the tone and the creep and horror factor is really, really cool. It reminds me in some ways to movies like The Descent, which is a really cool horror movie, and The Cave, which is a less cool horror movie, but it's also still pretty interesting. And I haven't really watched that many kind of like cave diving movies. I definitely should watch some more because I really like the concept of it, but this TMNT 3-parter is the closest thing to the best horror cave diving movie to me. Because I really love how it starts off with a mysterious creature digging out this giant hole, and the turtles finding, I'm not exactly sure where they found these certain crystals, but when Donnie touches the two crystals together, they kind of activate and make a really cool sound that to me is so memorable and so iconic and so atmospheric. I fucking love it. Like, if I hear it, I will remember it instantly. I can even, it's so memorable to me, I can play it in my head right now. I just really like it. And that is actually the thing that kind of brings that creature to the surface world. And once they find out the tunnel that it has created, they go deep down into an abandoned metro or train line, where they see another creature which ends up pushing them even further down. Then Mikey has a nightmare. And they delve even deeper down. They find the secret laboratory by the Shredder's Foot Clan, where they were experimenting on people and mutating them, which is how the creatures in this episode happen to have been made. But like, the first episode is so damn good. Like, everything about it is so good. Outside of maybe the fact that it's a food laboratory for experimentation, that just kind of feels a little bit tacked on. Like, I feel like it would be even more interesting if this was a movie that is completely disconnected from TMNT, and this was just like a secret, I don't know, ritual room, secret government laboratory or whatever. I feel like there's a more compelling reason why this place exists, and that being the reason for why the mutants exist. Because to me, I still like it. The fact that it's like a food facility, I still think it works, but I feel like there's more compelling reasons that are more creepy. Because a lot of this 3-parter is creepy and scary, and I really like it because of that. And sadly, it's only the first episode that is perfect in that regard. It's the perfect setup. In episode 2, it devolves a little bit more into typical TMNT stuff, because they end up fighting the mutants a little bit more, and they find out that they're the good guys. But we also have some more continuation, more of the horror stuff, with the turtles having to delve even deeper in this place so they can get a new crystal for the mutants to protect themselves from the evil mutants. And we have a lot of really cool scenes with them. They're obviously delving even deeper, with them having to jump into this giant whirlpool. That is a really cool moment there. It's just the atmosphere of this 3-parter is so creepy, and I really enjoy it. But the thing is, in the 3rd episode, when kind of the scariness and the creepiness is at its highest, especially because I think in the 2nd episode in the 2nd episode, Donnie gets captured by somebody, gets teleported away. It's at the highest because we don't know where Donnie is, and we don't know whether we can even get him because we don't know what the hell is going on. And then everybody starts disappearing one by one to the point where Mikey is left alone at the end. And that is just like peak creepiness and scariness, and I really like it. Even as a kid, that creeped the shit out of me. But once we find out that it's just this bald guy from a lost civilization that is basically TMNT's Atlantis, it's just kind of lame. I don't know, it just doesn't really feel satisfying with what it was building up. The build-up is all good, it's all creepy, it's all cool, but the ending is just kind of lame. It doesn't feel thematically or tonally consistent, because for most of it, it felt more of like a, I don't know how to say it, but it felt more like a supernatural horror movie, and then it ends up doing a twist where it's more of a sci-fi horror movie, and that just kind of doesn't jive with me very well. And I'm gonna be honest, I don't really know what they could have done to end the episode in a satisfying manner, like what they could have found at the end of the city, what could have been the reason for the city's existence to make it satisfying to me, because other than being the gates of hell or something, I feel like it wouldn't have been as satisfying as I would have wanted it to be. But still, overall, I like the journey that we go through in this episode, up to the point where we find out who the Elintian, the guy is, being an Elintian, aka the people who mutated Raptor, the flying guy with the wings, ancestors. But yeah, the journey is really good. It's totally really awesome. I really like everything about it. I honestly, as I said, would love for this to be adapted into a standalone horror movie. Somebody give me money. I'd adapt it into a standalone horror movie. That's how much I flippin' love it. If you want more cohesive or more in-depth reasons about why I love it, definitely check out my reaction to it. I think it's very much worth it. At number 4, we're gonna have Season 4, Episode 16, Prodigal Son.
Your own anger defeats you, Karai. You remind me of a turtle I used to know. No. I'm granting you one last chance to do the right thing, Karai. Don't waste it. And Karai, stay away from my family!
Hey, I finally learned how to say the word prodigal. Is it prodigal or prodigal? I mean, prodigal? It's a little confusing to me. For some reason, my mouth always goes to say prodigal when it's not prodigal, but it's prodigal or prodigal. I don't know what's the right way to pronounce it, honestly, but it's always fucking with me and I hate it. But yeah, I really love this episode, pretty much because it's a sequel to Scion of the Shredder. In a way, it's kind of pretty much like a two-parter, and I feel like I probably should have put it as a two-parter on this list because I can't really like one of the episodes without the other one. I guess this one is a little bit more standalone because in a way it pretty much recaps what happened in Scion of the Shredder when Karai attacked the lair and pushed everybody away and thought that she killed him. But in this episode, we find out the fact that they've escaped, and I really like the ways in which they escaped and masked their supposed deaths and supposed escapes. It's really cool. And the fact that it's Leonardo who has came back figuring that shit out, it's really cool to me. And if you want to refresh your memory, Raph had to escape in the battle shell, and then when the battle shell was blown up by a rocket, he escaped with his motorbike, then climbing up onto the train tracks and running past the train right as it was passing. That is a really cool sequence in my opinion. Then there's Donatello and Splinter, who are in the turtle submarine, who ends up getting itself into the dirt in the river. Then gets put onto autopilot and shot up, and Splinter and Donatello are left down in the ground and they show up afterwards. And Michelangelo, who ends up escaping in the drill machine with his cat Clunk, who I fucking love Clunk. I gotta call some of my cats Clunk. Definitely gotta name them that. He escapes into the drill machine, and just as it's being blown up, he jumps out and runs away. It's just the way that sequence is shown to us with Leo thinking about it. It's really cool to me. It shows his development and everything. It's just a really cool sequence, and how he finds them all one by one. And we get to see the new lair as well, which is in some kind of like a water pump station or whatever. And I don't love that one as much as the original lair, because the original lair is just iconic to me. But I still kind of like this lair, or at least the parts that we get shown in this episode with like all the pathways above the things with water. I think I don't remember exactly how it looks. I just remember the pathways and everything. And the reason why I like it so much is because my granddad used to work in a water cleaning station where he had to turn on those machines that clean up the water and everything, and afterwards the water goes into the river. And it had similar kind of pathways on which I walked as a kid, and it just, the similarity between it is the reason why I like it. It reminds me of that. So, as I said earlier, it's more of a personal reason why I like that layer. But the thing is, after this episode, and especially after the end of this season, it's not really that similar. We don't really get to see much of those pathways above the big balls of water. So yeah, I don't know. But it's a really cool episode, and I love the ending where Leo goes to tell Karai that his family is alive, and he goes and cuts her Shredder's statue's head, kind of calling back to when he cut off his head in season 1, which is really fucking cool. I always really liked that interaction with him and Karai. At number 3, we finally have a non-season 4 episode, that being season 3, episode 14, The Darkness Within.
Is it just me, or is this way off the creepy meter?
There's something seriously wrong here. You can hit them, but they just keep coming.
And there's more of them! Look!
You fools! You cannot kill the dead! Run! You must follow me!
What the shell is going on around here?
Honestly, this episode probably has the darkest imagery, in my opinion, in this show. And it definitely creeped the fuck out of me as a kid. When I was a kid, this was straight up the scariest episode of TMNT. I mean, hell, there's skeletons in this episode, there's foreboding messages about leaving all hope before you enter into these fucking gates of hell where you meet Cthulhu, and then the turtles all get put into these I don't know what to call them, eggs, where they live through their darkest nightmares, and then they end up killing Cthulhu, who always keeps manipulating people to come into this place, and then it turns out that the person who originally went to kill Cthulhu is the person that we meet in the episode, who ends up dying and literally disintegrating. Like, that shit fucks up a person, dude. And the atmosphere, the fear, the horror, and the skeletons, man. The skeletons are so creepy, dude. I fucking love this episode, though. It's so dark. It looks so good. And Leo obviously ends up killing Splinter, which, again, I guess could be a foreshadowing with what ends up happening with him and Splinter in season 4, but I'm not so sure. Maybe it's more of a reference to something, because I think Raph's nightmare of him being the Shredder is like a reference to a comic in which he became the Shredder, but yeah, I don't know. But yeah, it's just a really cool episodes with eldritch horror kind of vibe, and I love it. I fucking love it. This is, I guess, kind of what I was hoping that was gonna happen in the Notes from the Underground 3-parter at the end. I feel like if you take, if you stitch this episode to that episode there, if you stitch this episode with Notes from the Underground, you have the perfect horror fucking movie, dude. Everybody would love that if you made a horror movie like that. Maybe I should try to write something that is like a spiritually similar. Maybe I will do that at some point in the future. If you want to see a story like that, comment down below. Because if you didn't know, in addition to doing all these videos on my channel, I am also a writer. At number 2, we have another really dark episode, but in this case we're back to Season 4 episodes, that being Season 4, Episode 8, Bad Day.
Clunk! Mikey, wait! The current! Oh, Mikey, no! Mikey!
I mean, do I even need to explain to you guys why I love this episode? Everybody fucking dies. Before they figure out that it's actually a dream, everybody fucking dies. And the tone and everything is dark in this episode, with bad shit just starting to happen and everything going wrong. From Clunk dying, Mikey almost drowning, April and Casey dying as well. Every single villain that we've had so far teaming up to beat up the turtles. It's such a dark and brutal episode that just beats the turtles down further and further and further until they figure out, or should I say Splinter figures out, that it's a dream. It turns out to be the Foot Mystics ordered by Karai to do this, which is a really cool... it's honestly the best way they've been utilized in my opinion in the show. This is the one episode that I actually like them in, because otherwise I don't really care about them much. But yeah, I just really like how dark and how brutal it is to the turtles. And there's some really cool imagery and action in this episode, but I just love how much it beats onto the turtles. It's really brutal episode for them. I really like it because of that. And I know I'm rushing through the last few episodes a little bit quick, but before we get into the number 1 episode of this show, I guess let's go through some honorable mentions. Those being Meet Casey Jones, Darkness on the Edge of Town, The Way of Invisibility, Secret Origins, Part 2 specifically, The Big Bro 4-parter, HATE, New Blood, All Hallows Thieves, Samurai Tourist, Enter the Dragons 2-parter, and Turtles Forever, which is not really an episode, but I feel like I had to point it out in this video of the best TMNT stuff. But yeah, I like that movie a lot, but it's not like my favorite thing. I personally really hate the 80s turtles in that movie. They're very annoying to me, but I guess that's kind of the point that the show is also trying to make, but whatever. Anyway, let's go to number 1. At number 1, if you've checked which episodes I've put in this list, and if you have watched my reactions to the show, you've probably figured out which one was at number 1. That being I, Monster.
Stay back! He's mine! That guy's cracked, bro. We can't leave Leo alone with him.
We don't know the limits of his strength and skill, even with the 5 of us.
If Leo gets in trouble, I'm the first one in there. But right now... It looks to me like Leo's got more than one monster to work out of his system.
I flippin' love this episode. But the reason why I love this episode is actually because when I watched it originally when I was a kid, I had no information and no backstory about the Rat King. And in my opinion, it's better that way. It's better if you don't know where the Rat King came from, aka him being a Bishop clone. Although, knowing that he's a Bishop clone or a Bishop robot or whatever, it makes sense why he is so powerful and why he is so hard to beat in this episode. It explains it to you, but I feel like the mystery of where he comes from, especially with the flashback that we get in the opening of the episode, is just so much cooler to me. I really like it. I really like that. And I just love how the set piece of this episode is just this abandoned area where the turtles get to practice parkour essentially and just go around and train. It's really cool to me that I also bring Casey in this episode, and how he kind of is managing to keep up with them in regards to the parkour. Like at one point they jump off of one of the buildings and he also jumps just like that. But in general, I just love this episode because of how cool the fights with the Rat King are. And it's so annoying to me how bad of a character the Rat King in the 2012 series is in comparison to this shit. Like, you're never gonna top the Rat King after this. He's too much of a badass in this episode. How he manages to be toe-to-toe with Leo. Like, Leo is literally the only one who is able to keep up with him and beat the shit out of him. Like, the fights that we have between the two in this episode are so damn good. And again, this is right into the middle of the Leo rage arc, so we also get that super angry and super brutal Leo that really elevates the fights in this episode as well, especially when Leo screams, what the shell's your problem? Like, it's so damn good. And like I mentioned for so many of the episodes for season 4, it's a gorgeous looking episodes. Like when it gets to the sun going down and getting to like dusk, every single episode looks so visually stunning. Like the color palette is so aesthetically pleasing, and this episode is no different. And I love how for most of the episode, I mean not really most of the episode, but for half of the episode, the turtles are not even aware of him, and they're just looking for Mikey because they were like playing a game of hide and seek essentially. And it was really cool how Leo at one point sees a shadow, then he runs up and breaks through a window because again of his rage, where he's just not really thinking that he's just going for the destruction. And I really like that. I really like that. It's such a good episode with cool fights, a really awesome villain, and it's visually stunning. Like, what more could you want? But again, like a lot of the episodes in this show in general that I like, I feel like they are better if you exclude the connections to the Turtles and the Foot Clan. Like I said for Notes from the Underground, or I think I said it, I don't know. If you exclude the fact that the laboratory that mutated the creatures was the Foot Clan doing it, and the fact that at the end of the episode the Foot Clan is looking for the turtles in the sewers, it's honestly kind of better of an episode. If you remove that connection, it's better. It feels more interesting. Because like I said, the world of the TMNT 2003 is so good, you don't even need the turtles for it to be enjoyable. And this episode again is another example of that, because if you don't have the connection to the Foot Clan, or I guess in this case it's Bishop, it's better. He's a better villain because he's a mysterious villain with only glimpses of what his origin is. And that is more interesting. When you don't explain the origin, is much more interesting to me. But yeah, what is your guys' favorite episodes of the 2003 series? These are mine. I'm really curious to see how you place the episodes yourself and the reasons for it. So make sure to comment down below, and I'll try to reply to all of you guys. And as usual, before we end this video, I just want to give a huge shout out to my currently 4 patrons on Patreon: Omar Bridgman, Deadpool, Sarah, and our newest patron, Gregory. Thank you guys for your support. I really appreciate it. It really means a lot to me that you have decided to support me because you enjoy my content so much. But I hope you continue to enjoy my content and support me for a long time going forward, because I really love making you guys entertained. I really love making videos that you guys enjoy, and I'm glad that you enjoy them enough to decide to support me. So yeah, thank you very much. And now, before we end this video, I just want to talk about something to you guys very quickly, which some of you may or may have not noticed before or know about me, that being the fact that I am trans. And yes, this may come as shocking to some of you because I don't really flaunt it that much on my channel, or at least I feel like I don't. Outside of like my K-pop reactions, which is where I feel like the most comfortable being myself like this. And yeah, I am in fact trans. I'm not necessarily full-on male to female, but I heavily want to transition to being pretty female. I do consider myself more non-binary though, or maybe gender fluid would be the best descriptor as well, because I do have occasional moments where I feel fine being like just a normal guy, but most of the time, like right now, I do feel very dysphoric. And that's why I'm asking you guys for any help that you can give me, because my situation right now, I don't really see any way outside of you guys' help. Because, and this is gonna be kept short and concise, I live with my parents. They're never going to accept me as a trans person. They just never will. And as a matter of fact, back when I started the YouTube channel, I was actually kind of slightly starting my transition back then, with like starting to grow out my hair. I even got to DIY HRT, but because my parents started noticing certain things like my behavior had changed a lot and my clothes had changed a lot, I kind of had to stop doing that because they were constantly nagging me about cutting my hair and just started to kind of be threatening in a certain way, and felt like they were ashamed of me and everything. And that just kind of stress just tired me out to the point where I just gave up. But as dysphoria goes, it just doesn't go away, you know. I still feel like this, and in fact it's somewhat been intensifying again recently, so I just wanted to share this with you guys. And again, I would really appreciate any amount of support you can give me in regards to this, because I just don't see any way out of this. Because even if I moved out of my parents' house and got myself a job and everything, that's just not gonna work for long-term planning, because once I transition, it's like I probably will not be able to get myself a job because my country is very transphobic. Nobody gives a shit about LGBT people at all. So there's not even much I can do even in terms of transitioning here. So yeah, I don't know. I just would appreciate any amount of support you can give me, be it monetarily or in any way otherwise. And this is not about boosting my channel or anything, or guilt tripping you with my sob story. I just wanted to get this off my chest and make my subscribers aware of the situation that I am in, and that I would appreciate anything that you guys can help me out with. It would mean literally everything. Like, for example, a friend that I made after starting this YouTube channel, my good friend Yuri, has been helping me out a lot. And I genuinely might have not been here if it wasn't for him showing up and befriending me. So yeah, this just went a little bit longer than I intended, but I would just really appreciate anything you can support me with. That's kind of ultimately what I'm trying to say. And yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video, and if you did, please leave a like and subscribe. Also, check out the links in the description to my Twitter if you want to follow me over there, and to my Wattpad where I post my stories, because in addition to doing all these videos on my channel, I'm also a writer. And if you don't enjoy my stories, or you simply enjoy my videos, you can head over to my Patreon or to my Ko-fi account, where you can pledge your support and help get the channel growing, help support me so I can keep writing the stories you enjoy. But if you don't want to do it, that's completely fine. You can still help me out in other ways, like liking this video, subscribing to the channel, and especially sharing this video with somebody who you think might enjoy it. And I think that's pretty much it for this video, so Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and I'm hoping that I'm going to see you next year, so bye!